Now I suppose many of you may be wondering, Darkness, what are you doing reviewing Ninja Gaiden 2 again? Well, for one, I'm not just reviewing Ninja Gaiden 2, I'm also reviewing Ninja Gaiden 3. But the other thing is that you know I can never let anything go. And, well, for those of you who don't know, I did do a Ninja Gaiden 2 review a long time ago. And it's actually, well, my longest review ever, as far as I can think of. Yes, I believe it is. It is, 11 parts. Each were about 10 minutes, except the 11th one, which was about 3. So, that's well over an hour. Probably about an hour and a half. Let me do the math here. Actually, a little more than an hour and a half. About an hour and 40 minutes. An hour and 40 minutes for a review. Many people found that way too long. And yes, it was a very detailed and long-winded review. But the real reason I want to redo it is not because it was too long. I'm actually fine with the length. I don't mind things that are long as things are detailed. And there's a reason for it. After all, if you've watched Spoony1's reviews, you know his go on forever sometimes. No. The reason I'm redoing it is that review really wasn't mine, I guess is the best way to put it. See, I did that review with a friend of mine, who some of you may be aware of. He's an old Let's Player, he's known as Regno. He doesn't do videos anymore, but he did, and he's a real-life friend of mine. And he and I decided to sit down and review Ninja Gaiden 2, because we're both really freaking mad about it, and he's a way bigger fan of Ninja Gaiden than I am. And he had a lot to say. A lot to say. Like, way more than I said. And in fact, I'm pretty sure most of that review was me puppeting and agreeing with things that he had already said. Which means that the review is basically his the whole time. So we're gonna review Ninja Gaiden 2 alone this time, and I'm gonna give you my thoughts on it, because I do have a lot to say about this game. Now, many people were wondering why, well, why I'm reviewing the original launch of both Ninja Gaiden 2 and Ninja Gaiden 3, the original versions. They asked this even before they bought them, because see, these games were actually donations off the wish list. Which, thank you whoever sent those in. I didn't get a name, so I can't endorse you or anything. But I appreciate the donation, which is why you're getting a review. But the reason I'm doing the original versions is because of one thing. I don't play fix-it games. Now, this is about the time where I'm sure many of you are raising your hands and saying, Darkness, what the hell is a fix-it game? Well, a fix-it game is a term I coined to refer to any game that was released for the specific purpose of, shall we say, fixing a game that was already released. There are a few examples of this, but basically they're games that were released after another version of that game was already released, and the only reason the second version had to be made was because the first version was completely unconditionally unfucking goddamn playable. An example of this would be Ninja Gaiden 2. And 3, and Alone in the Dark. I had one of those too. There's a few, and I refer to fix-it games more specifically in situations where the re-released copy is also released at a $60 price point, just like the original. The reason I don't play fix-it games is because basically the company that does this is doubling their profits when you really think about it. Because okay, they released the first copy of the game, and it was a broken, inconceivable mess. Alright? Now, everyone who bought the game was really pissed off, and they paid $60 for it. Alright, so the company decides, well, let's fix this game and re-release it for another $60. And so all the people who bought the game in the first place, who now have to re-buy the game again, a fixed copy of it, mind you, have to shovel out another $60 in order to get the fixed version. Are you fucking kidding me? Do you see why this is stupid? Like, honestly, the very notion of charging people twice for a game that you should have gotten right in the fucking first place is ludicrous. It's almost a scam, in a sense. You're giving them double the money for messing up. I cannot be the only one who sees the problem here. And I'm well aware that there are certain situations where this is okay, like with Super Street Fighter 4, I mean, that game retailed at a lower cost from what I recall, and that's kind of alright, and that wasn't so much a fix-it game as it was a huge update to Street Fighter 4, but in this case, when it comes to Ninja Gaiden 2, Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma was released specifically to correct the problems with Ninja Gaiden 2. What's wrong with Ninja Gaiden 2? Everything. Okay, not everything. I guess I should start at the beginning and try to explain where I'm coming from. And I'm gonna refer to the original game a lot here, because this is sort of where the problems come up, in that the game seemed to go out of its way to take the original and suck all the fun and strategy out of it, to the point that it's a complete mess, like, honestly. But I'll try to talk about the positive points here, because there are some things I do genuinely like about Ninja Gaiden 2. For one, the graphics for the time are actually really, really good. These were quite impressive for the time, and they hold up fairly well. And they're not as good as, like brand new games, but it still looks pretty good, regardless. In addition, the soundtrack is actually pretty kick-ass, and the voice acting, etc. is all pretty good. So, basically what I'm saying is, graphics and sound overall, pretty good. And then we get to the gameplay, and this is where things start to fall apart. And, you'd think looking at it, it looks like a lot of fun, and I'm well aware that it does. In fact, you're watching this footage, you're like, there doesn't look like anything wrong with the game at all, Darkness. I'm gonna get to the problems, alright? Because there are a lot of things in Ninja Gaiden 2's gameplay that they introduced here that didn't exist in the first game, and some of which is okay. There's actually a lot of good ideas here. It's just the implementation is so motherfucking bad that it just ruins the whole experience. For example, they introduced the concept of de-limbing here, where basically when you attack enemies, occasionally, in fact almost every single time you attack, you'll end up de-limbing them. And that means you'll take off an arm or a leg, and it'll change how enemies interact with you, how they attack, some of them will blow themselves up as a result because they're gonna die anyway, etc, etc. Okay, that's fine, but the thing is, whenever you de-limb someone, you now have the option to obliterate them, do an obliteration move, which is basically a move where you simply tap the Y button one time, and Ryu goes into a state where he's completely invincible from other enemies' attacks, and he insta-kills any enemy you just de-limbed. This will become very relevant later. In addition, I need to talk about the ultimate attack, which is the attack that you do when you go into this ridiculous burst form, and you just slaughter everything in front of you, and the ultimate attack differs with each weapon, and overall, I like the idea of it, but it's got a problem, and this is where I'm really going to start getting into negatives again. I'm just button mashing here, and that's what it feels like the whole frickin' time. Specifically with the Dragon Sword, which is the first weapon we're really going to want to talk about here. I'm pretty sure I don't hit any other button but the Y button whenever I'm using the Dragon Sword. See, the problem with this is that the Dragon Sword's combos are the same speed whether they're heavy or light, so there's really no reason to chain them in any real way. If you just mash the Y button, you'll win. Not only that, but the Y button also controls whether you obliterate, so you'll obliterate automatically because it's all you're mashing. And then on top of it, the Y button also controls whether you're doing your ultimate attack or not. Do you see why this is kind of an issue? I'm hitting one button the whole time when I'm using this weapon and nothing else, and I'm winning. This is exactly the kind of crap that you got punished hardcore for in the original Ninja Gaiden. That game didn't fuck around. You had, not optionally, you had to do combos in that game in order to be effective. You had to be skilled. You had to try. Here, all I have to do is mash the same button over and over and over again. And with the sole exception of boss battles, I'm able to curb stomp every single enemy I fucking face. And it's not like the boss battles or any, super-de-duper tactical situations. I just have to change. I actually have to avoid attacks and stuff because you can't block everything. And blocking is also a thing. That's like the only other button I'll ever press with the Dragon Sword is the block button, which, whoop-de-goddamn do. And even that doesn't get pressed half the time because you're invincible when you obliterate and you're invincible when you ultimate attack. So, I'm invincible most of the time anyway. But, let's say this. Okay, so the argument here is, well, don't use the Dragon Sword. Okay. You know what? Fine. I get that argument a lot when it comes to situations like this where it's like, well, if something's broken in the game, you don't have to do it. And I always found that a stupid, flawed argument because it's like, okay, if something exists in a game, if a mechanic in the game exists, why wouldn't you exploit it? It's a problem, no matter how you slice it. But it's true. I'm gonna let you win right now. I'm not gonna argue this right now. I'm gonna explain why the argument doesn't even hold water here, even if I did believe that it was a worthwhile argument, which it isn't. But let's assume that it is, just for the sake of this review. Let's assume that it is. Here's the problem. Every single weapon in the game has something that's broken about it. All of them resort to some level of button mashing or some situation where you're doing an infinite combo. Allow me to elaborate on this thing. Okay, let's take the Lunar, for example, which is the second weapon you get. Okay, fine. And, you know, in total fairness, the Lunar is probably one of the shall we say, less spammy weapons there are. You actually are rewarded for doing combos with the Lunar in this situation. You actually have to press a different button that isn't the Y button. The inherent problem with the Lunar is it has a specific combo, which if I recall correctly is just XXY, that is almost guaranteed to decapitate enemies in front of you every single time. So you end up just spamming that one combo and you win. This is going to become a pattern, you'll see, when I get to the next weapon. Okay, so let's talk about, shall we say, the Tonfas. Those were a pretty good weapon, except they have a combo that makes you completely invincible, basically, and that's not good. Okay, what about the Kusurigama, my favorite weapon? Okay, yeah, I would say this weapon is pretty balanced, because both the X and Y buttons have a delay on them, so you have to, like, strategize and, you know, do combos and try, except that the ultimate attack is one of the few ultimate attacks in the game. I think there's only one other one, maybe two, and one or two other ultimate attacks in the game that hit more than one enemy, in that it hits all of them. And if it doesn't kill them, it will delimb them, so that's pretty fucking broken. And then we get to the Scythe, and oh my god, the Scythe. We'll come back to that. Okay, what about the Claws? Oh, they're pretty broken too. You see, every single fucking weapon in this game has something about it that's exploitable or abusive to enemies, and don't tell me to play on the harder difficulty modes, because I tried that and it didn't help, so fuck you. Getting back to the Scythe, okay, even if you could argue with me that not all the weapons are completely broken, it's true, the weapons differ sometimes, you know, like for example, the Tonfa's infinite combo does take practice to do. Alright, I'll give it that, and like I said, the Kusurigama isn't completely broken in every conceivable way, it's just the ultimate attack. I mean, you know, they differ, and there are differences, and there's variety here, so, you know, but the Scythe, here's the thing about the Scythe. Okay, for one, when you get the Scythe, the game actually auto-selects it for you. It's like the developers are saying, okay, here, just use this, you'll win. And it's true, because not only does the Scythe have an infinite combo, which used to kill every enemy in the game because of an AI bug, which I'll talk about later, but its ultimate attack is ludicrous in that it sends a giant shockwave out and kills everything in front of it. And if you think that's not broken, consider the fact that the level immediately after where you get the Scythe is the level with all the narrow hallways, so you can completely exploit this tactic to rape everything in front of you. Okay, that's good. That's great. I love it. That's oh my god, this fucking thing. Like seriously. It just destroys the entire game. Not only is it ridiculously powerful, but enemies just don't seem to know what to do about it. You just fucking rape everything. And again, I know what you're thinking. Well, why don't you just not use it? And yes, that's absolutely true. But then it raises the question, for one, the game encourages it. It's on the fucking cover, for Christ's sake. And then why wouldn't you? It's so fucking strong. I mean, as soon as you get this weapon, it's like, why use anything else? You think you're gonna use the dual swords? Those suck! They're like the worst weapons in the game, except their ultimate attack is broken. But that's not the point. As I was trying to say, the Scythe, just Jesus Christ. Oh my god, there was never a weapon like this in the first game. Again, I plead with you to understand where I'm coming from here. You know, this doesn't sound like super duper bad things, you know, but you have to understand this is a Ninja Gaiden game. You expect it to force you to be skilled, to encourage the use of combos, to encourage you to try, to encourage skillful play and tactics, to not just resort to spamming a single weapon or spamming a single button, but that's all you seem to do, and there's so many exploits here. It's so flawed, but even if you could argue with me that the weapons aren't inherently flawed on their own, and you know, I'll concede that not all the weapons are ridiculously exploitable. Again, Kasurigama, Tonfa's take some practice, etc., etc. I get it. But I want to talk about the AI, and this is where I'm going to start getting into straight-up glitches, like things that are blatantly fucking wrong with this game. Okay, the enemy AI, on launch, for one, was completely fucking retarded, and still is to a certain extent to this day. Did you know enemies, have no understanding of proper altitude, which is why one of the site's combos, called Raining Blood, was so abusive to them, to the point that you could spam it indefinitely and you'd win every single time. They wouldn't be able to do anything about you. It's still effective to a certain extent, although it is patched on some bosses, so it doesn't work on them anymore, unless your name is Genshin, in which it totally fucking works. But it does still work on enemies, and really well, I might add. But then you have situations where enemies have no idea how far away you are, like why is this guy running at me? Why is this guy running off a cliff? Like, you get a lot of situations like that. I mean, this happens quite often, to a certain extent. But the flaw I really want to get into, to illustrate why this is a problem, and why jumping around is actually one of the most effective strategies for avoiding enemies, I bring you the table bug. Now, there used to be a glitch involving the werewolves and tables, where if you jumped on the dining room table in the middle of a room, the werewolf fiends would have no fucking clue what to do. They would literally just stammer around and just stare at you, as if, oh my god, dude, what's he doing on the table? I just can't handle this. God, how do you get up there? Oh my god, it's not like we have a jump attack or anything, except you totally have a jump attack, you fucking idiots. And I was astounded to find that they patched this. I was quite surprised. The inherent problem now is that they don't seem to understand how to get off the table, so that's good. Love it. So, you fixed the problem of them not being able to get on the table, but you've caused us another problem in that they don't know how to get off the table. Wow. In addition, there's an AI problem with Ryu himself, and I know what you're thinking. Wait, you control Ryu, and I'm like, yeah, I know what that means. There's a targeting problem with the ultimate attacks. Sometimes I hit enemies, and the ultimate attack straight up does not go off. They were not blocking. I didn't cancel it, and I'm pretty sure there's not a way to cancel an ultimate attack, technically. It just doesn't happen. I don't understand this bug. It happens occasionally. I don't get it. But a more confounding issue is that they gave Ryu the ability to target furniture in this game, and I'm not sure why they did that. Destructible furniture is fine, but targetable? The problem with that is, if you charge up an ultimate attack and you're too close to a couch, Ryu has a nasty habit of turning around and smashing a sofa in the corner, rather than the deadly Scythe Fiend in front of him. I have no understanding of this at all, and it's completely fucking stupid. Do I need to elaborate further? You're starting to get the picture now? Okay, let's press on. The game gets worse as things progress. Things become more and more apparent. It just starts to fall apart right around, I'd say the 9th level, which is called Heart of Darkness. I don't want to talk about it. Don't make any jokes. I'm not going to. I'm going to completely ignore that. Yes, my heart is a rainforest, bite me. Now, anyway, as I was trying to say, things start getting bad here, and the thing I started to notice is that the game we were on, it started to run into situations where I could run past enemies, and this happens a lot. And I mean a fucking lot. Where the more effective strategy is almost always to run past all the enemies and just keep going. There's literally an entire segment in the latter part of the game that you can completely skip over if you just keep running past all the ninja. It's fucking stupid. And if you're saying, well then just don't do that, you don't understand how repetitive the combat can get. It almost expects you to do this. See, other games like this, tend to put up walls to make you fight, you know. Actually, it's pretty much every other game of this type. And the funny thing about it is that there is a wall system in this game. I've seen them come up, but they don't always do it. I don't get it. And the thing about it is, if you run too far and you get a ton of enemies on the screen, the slowdown starts to happen. And that's the funniest thing in the world. And then I get depressed because when the game's all slowed up, you can see how detailed Ryu's animations are, and how much work they put into the style and the flow of combat and everything, and I get depressed because I realize that this game, if it was finished, would have been really good, but no, they decided not to do that. Great! Love it! Another problem this game has is artificial difficulty. What do I mean by that? Because I'm sure you're thinking, what the fuck does that even mean, Darkness? Artificial difficulty? You know, it's a Ninja Gaiden game. I expect it to be legitimately hard, and yeah, so would I. I already elaborated how the game is too easy because the weapons are broken and the AI is totally bugged. But the thing about it is that they seem to try to make it harder by putting in moments that, you just straight up can't prepare for. You have no way of avoiding them. There's several times where you walk around a corner and a fiend just jumps on you and just starts punching you in the fucking face, and you can't react to it. What the hell? And it happens every time. It's a scripted event, and it's bullshit. And if you're saying, well, you know, hey, that's just the game being hard and challenging. That's not challenging. That's a cheap shot. That's not fair. In the first game, I never got cheap shots. Whenever I died, I felt like it was because I wasn't skilled enough and I had to try to chain my combos better and dodge more and counter better. This is just kicking me in the shin. I mean, it's not fair. You can't react to it. There's no reaction time, and you can't see it coming on your first playthrough. In order to really illustrate the cheapness that the game tends to dwell to how low the game will go in terms of cheap shotting you, in just a vain attempt to try to pretend like it's actually hard and a challenging game. Let me illustrate the giant fire armadillo. This is one of the bosses in the game, and he's not that hard once you realize that his weak spot is his fucking face, and if you just smash him there with a scythe, he's really easy. The thing about the fire armadillo is that when you beat him, you're like, yeah, I beat this boss. Take that, fire armadillo, and then he fucking explodes like a nuclear goddamn bomb in your face, and you fucking die. There is no goddamn warning for this crap, and the first time it happens, you just won't see it coming. It's bullshit. But the best part about it is that not only does the game give you no inkling on how to avoid it, but your first thought, if you're experienced with Ninja Gaiden, would be to run away from it, because you can't block explosions, certainly not a nuclear bomb. I mean, that just defies all logic, and in any explosion in this game, you can't block it. It's just a rule. You can't block explosions in Ninja Gaiden. This is something that any experienced Ninja Gaiden player would know. The thing is, you can't block explosions, except the A-bomb. You can't block anything else, except the one that looks like a goddamn nuke. Yeah, okay. If you really want to defy logic here, yeah, I'm game. Speaking of bosses, there's a boss rush at the end, and I always hate that. I hate rehash boss fights. But if you really want to get into rehash boss fights, I point you in the direction of Genshin, who's one of the only bosses in the game that has no idea what to do about raining blood. But that's not the point. You fight him 4 goddamn times in this game, and he almost never gets any better. I think he gets like 1 additional move, and that's it. Jesus Christ, I get that he's supposed to be Ryu's rival and shit, but 4 times? 4 times? Why? Good lord, it's not even that fun of a goddamn fight, but okay. And it's not like any of the other bosses are really compelling either. The only one with any level of personality that goes beyond, I am a fiend and I am better than you. I am Alexi and I have lightning. I'm Zidonius and I gave caveman fire. I'm Elizabeth and I like blood because that's my element, because blood's an element. And then there's Wolf, who, you know, is sort of like a Roman emperor, and, you know, is kind of honorable and wants to fight Ryu one-on-one, even though he has an army of werewolves. I mean, he's very cool about this, until the final boss rush, in which he just wants to stab you in the face, but that's not the point. But you know what? I've rambled on enough. Okay, I think you get the picture. It's just a flawed experience overall. When the game was launched, it was broken beyond repair. I mean, there was literally a bug in it that let you not be able to beat the game. I mean, the game would freeze and there was no way to progress. It was bullshit. You had to go and delete all the updates in your 360 in order to do that. And some people said, oh, see, there's a way around it. You're missing the point, guys. You shouldn't have to do that. When I pay $60 for a game, I expect a quality product. And that is not what the original Ninja Gaiden 2 was. At all, by any means. And it is true, the updates have made it a little bit better, to a certain extent. You know, they fixed some bugs, it's playable now. I'll concede to that. But it's still nowhere near as good as the original game. Not even close. But before
before I close and move on to Ninja Gaiden 3, I need to show you this. Okay, I need to show you the absolute stupidest thing in Ninja Gaiden 2. Alright? Now, I am well aware that video games in general tend to play fast and loose with the lethality of molten lava. Okay? That's been a thing since Atari. Alright? I'm totally up front for that. I get it, you know. And even the original Ninja Gaiden, you know, if you fell in it, you could run out and jump out of it. You know, you wouldn't die immediately. I mean, you'd lose health, you know, but you wouldn't die immediately. And okay, but I draw the line at swimming in it as if it is water, as is the case during the second fight against Sidonius. Oh my god, this is really happening. This is dumb. You want to talk about physically impossible, and don't tell me, oh, he can do it because he's a ninja. I will fucking cut you. This is not, no, I don't care how much ninja training. That lava is at least 1300 degrees, if not more. I mean, it's fucking lava. You can't, you wouldn't be able to get close to it in the real world, okay? You would, you know, inhale lethal fumes and suffer severe burns just by standing near it. But again, video game plays fast and loose with logic, but this goes way over the goddamn line. And the best part about this is that it actually makes the fight way harder because it's more difficult to move in water than it would be if you could just run around waist deep in the lava like you could in the first game. Because then you could just jump out of it. But here you have to submerge and then surface and then get out of it. And then he runs on top of it. Like, okay, that's great. But you know what the best part is? They put stupid water mines in the lava right in front of the exit to the Sidonius fight. So if you have really little health, just by running to the edge and touching the mines, if you don't see them, you die immediately. Did I mention this game is really cheap and unfair sometimes? Like, that's not legitimate difficulty at all. That's just bullshit. It's nothing but cheap shots, and it's annoying, and a waste of my goddamn time.
But you know, here's the thing about Ninja Gaiden 2. You know, I can almost see why people would like it in a certain sense. Because if you just want a game where you run through and you kill everything, you know, now that it's semi-functional, I can see someone, at least somewhat, enjoying this. It's still not a Ninja Gaiden game by any stretch of the imagination. But I can at least see how someone could find it fun. This, on the other hand, is horseshit. Funny story. Okay, when Ninja Gaiden 3 was first launched, I didn't get it. I got Ninja Gaiden 2 day one, which is part of the reason why I was so mad. But I didn't get Ninja Gaiden 3 because I was still mad about Ninja Gaiden 2. Actually, today I'm still mad about Ninja Gaiden 2. But this, when it was launched, I heard nothing but complaints. Complaints. And then a friend came to me and said, dude, everyone's saying it's even worse than Ninja Gaiden 2. And I was like, I don't believe that for a second. You're talking about making a sequel to a game that wasn't functional when it was launched. It didn't work. There was so much broken about it. You're telling me that the sequel they made to it is somehow worse than that. Is there even a game on the disc at that point? I couldn't even imagine what they could have fucked up. I literally had no conceivable idea, not even a notion of how they could have messed it up that bad to make it worse. I mean, how do you do that? Oh, they found a way.
I cannot express how unbelievably botched this game was. I don't think it's possible to overstate that. They got almost every conceivable thing wrong here. Like, oh my god. I am just floored at the state this game is. Do you want to know something? There are no alternate weapons, you just have the sword. There are no shops to buy items, or alternate weapons, because those don't exist. There aren't even any combos. There are only 2 ranged weapons, and one is a single button, and the other one is the bow. Mind you, before you had plenty of other alternate ranged weapons that would allow you to, you know, change up the game. There are no alternate paths to get treasures and stuff. There's just one giant hallway streamlined into oblivion. There's no choice in direction. There's nowhere else to go. There's just in a straight line, fight after fight after fight after fight after fight. And I totally get with the whole, this is a hallway, there's no choice here. They kind of did that in 2, because mind you, the first game was slightly open world to a certain extent. And in 2, they streamlined it more, but there was still some side paths. There was still room to explore there. That still existed. Here, there is none. There is only fighting with your one weapon, which is just the sword. Great now. And that's it. That's all you do. Fight, 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 with nothing but this one weapon. With all the weapons that 2 had, by the end of it, the fighting got pretty tedious, but you have no idea what tedium is until you have played Ninja Gaiden 3. In fact, you barely play Ninja Gaiden 3 now that I think about it. The game kind of plays itself. Like, integrated within the gameplay, there's these weird quick-time events that are sort of stand-ins for proper combos, which, as far as I'm concerned, don't exist in this game. I mean, they're there, but there's no reason to exploit them at all, because simply mashing the X button, not the Y button, the X button, is actually fairly effective, and will win you almost every fight. In fact, the only time you press the Y button is when you're using your ultimate attack, which will instantly kill 3 enemies, guaranteed every time, or when you're using your one spell in the whole game, which is Art of Inferno, which has been the basic spell in all frickin' 3 Ninja Gaiden games so far, and that summons a giant fire dragon, which instantly kills all the enemies on the screen, which basically means that you almost always have a freaking insta-kill move at your disposal at any given time. That's one thing I didn't mention in 2, the spells, probably because I didn't really have much of an issue with them. Art of Wind Waves was pretty fucking strong, and that whole let enemies follow you around thing basically made it so that once you stacked up all the enemies, you could just use Art of Wind Waves to kill them all. But, at least there was an option there. Again, there are options in 2. There were alternate weapons. They were broken, but they existed. There were alternate spells. Some of them were broken, but they existed. In Ninja Gaiden 3, you don't have any options. You have your one spell, you have your one sword, and you have nothing else for the whole run of the game except this bow, which fucking aims itself. I am not even joking about that. Even the story says so. Jesus fucking Christ, what is wrong with you, Ninja Gaiden 3? Oh my god.
This is a special bow that can lock onto a target. Should be easy enough for you to use, right?
So, basically, they've made a Ninja Gaiden game where they have literally stripped away every single conceivable aspect that would make it a Ninja Gaiden game. I can't make this shit up.
Do you know what the best part is about this whole streamlining into oblivion thing? The platforming, the little that there is basically automatic, if you can believe that. I have done jumps in this game that I have messed up, and I know I messed up because I went in at a bad angle. The game auto-corrects them in midair. I am not joking about this, I swear to God. You have to believe me. I couldn't even believe what I saw. You know what the funny part is? I've read comments where people blame games like COD and Uncharted, which both made super duper cinematic gaming popular. They blame those games for this. No. No. See, when I'm playing Uncharted, I at least feel like I'm playing. And when I'm playing a COD game, I again feel like I'm playing. I don't even feel like I'm playing a game here, guys. Jesus, tap dancing Christ on a stick. There aren't even that many enemy types. In Ninja Gaiden 2, there were a little over 10 different types. Maybe a bit more. Maybe about a dozen, I'd say. Here, there are about maybe 8 if I'm counting the jetpack soldiers, which are just regular soldiers with jetpacks, or, the soldiers that do different combos. I mean, there's really little variety in the enemy types, and by little variety, I mean there's basically none at all. So on top of doing the same combos with the same spell, with the same sword, the whole same time, you're fighting the same enemies over and over again. Everything is the same. You have no choice. It is always the same. It is always going to be the same. Nothing is ever going to change. And you will always have the same thing over and over and over again. Wow. Wow, wow. And then we get to the story. Alright. You know, and I was almost kind of impressed with this until they fucked it up. But at first, I was almost kind of impressed with this whole thing, because this whole story is actually taken a bit more seriously in 3, because mind you, in the first Ninja Gaiden game, and in Ninja Gaiden 2, the plots were there, but you never really paid too much attention to them. They were only there as an excuse to get Ryu to do cool shit. So, that's why I didn't really complain about the plot in 2. I mean, I have a bunch of questions like, Jesus Christ, how many ninjas does the Black Spider Clan have? Actually, that's a question I have in 3, too. But it's not the point. You know, and how do they have access to a giant military-grade flying battleship? I mean, this is very confusing to me. But, you know, again, it wasn't taken too seriously, so it was hard for me to care too much. Yeah, a lot of characters didn't have any development. In fact, the only two that really had any development were Wolf and Genshin. And Genshin was only because you fought him 4 godforsaken times. But then we get to here, where they attempt to flush out all the characters and actually try to tell a, you know, coherent narrative. And, you know what? I'm going to give it some props. They did flush out the characters here. There are characters that I can, you know, understand and relate to, and they actually try to treat Ryu as if he's, you know, an actual person. And I can actually appreciate that. I was actually impressed. That was good. I thought that was a good thing. You know, I like my main character, you know, to have, you know, some personality, where Ryu didn't have much before, whereas here he seems like an actual guy that I could relate to. The problem is that they completely fuck up his character to a certain extent, and the whole time the narrative is bludgeoning you with this, Ryu is murderer, or is he not murderer? We don't know. He kills people, but is he good guy, or is he bad guy? I don't know. Ryu kills so many people. That's why his arm curse with their souls, and now his arm curse let him kill people more, even though that makes no goddamn sense, because why would a curse make you more powerful, even though it's going to kill him eventually, and he's suffering for killing people, because he's bad, but he's good, but he's bad. I don't know. What? God, Jesus Christ, this narrative sucks! Okay, let me explain the problem here. For one, the game, at least twice, puts you in this situation where Ryu approaches a guy who's begging for his life, and you have to stab him in the fucking chest, and kill him. And that would be fine if not for 2 things. One, you know, Ryu's always been pretty honorable, as evidenced by his respect for a deceased Genshin. You know, because, you know, he respected what Genshin did for his clan, even though what Genshin did was evil. There's honor there. He respects Genshin. I consider it fairly dishonorable to stab someone who's begging for their life. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's something Ryu straight up, would not do. Honestly, you know, I'd expect that of Kratos. You know, that's fine. If this were God of War, I'd totally buy that Kratos would do that. Kratos does not give a fuck. Ryu is not Kratos. They are not even close to the same, and I just wouldn't expect this. And the thing I love about it is that the whole narrative, you know, is focused around, oh, are you really a good guy? You're killing people. Yet, there's no choice involved when it comes to killing somebody. You have to do it. The game forces you. You can't progress without stabbing these guys. So, what the hell is the deal? I think it would be a more interesting narrative if it gave the player some sort of option, but it doesn't. That's non-existent. And then the thing I love about it is, you know, when they did this with Metal Gear Rising, it was actually okay. It was a really good story, because then there was sufficient cause to question Raiden's actions. He was killing police officers at a certain point, you know, in order to accomplish his final goal. There was suspicion. I mean, you weren't really sure whether Raiden was really doing the right thing. Ryu, on the other hand, you know, I'm pretty sure I can justify Ryu's actions every single time. Because, oh, well, let's think about this. How about the fact that in every single previous game he's been in, he has single-handedly averted the apocalypse? On top of that, the game's like, oh, you've killed so many people, Ryu. Yet, you know, Ryu hasn't killed as many people as he has killed fiends, I would think. And in fact, most of the time, that's who I'm stabbing, are fiends. At least in the first 2 games. And the thing about fiends is that they're demons. From hell! They are made of evil. And you want to tell me he's not justified? And even if he is stabbing people, you know, he's trying to save the world from apocalypse. He's doing the same thing here. The bad guys are the one that placed this curse on him. And they're like, oh, are you really a good guy? Well, since you're trying to cause the motherfucking apocalypse, yeah, I'm pretty sure Ryu's the fucking good guy.
You are not a murderer. You're not exactly a hero either. Guess that's what it means to be a ninja.
What kind of fucking line is that? He's totally the fucking hero. He saved the world 4 times! 4! And you want to sit there, oh, you're not really a hero either. Yeah, he fucking is! What are you talking about? What the fuck are you on, man? This entire narrative makes no goddamn sense. And then I raise into question the enemies here. Because they're like these weird cultist alchemists that are trying to release this goddess in order to restart the world or create a new world. And to that they have to destroy the current world. And I get their crazier stuff. But, you know, they do these terrorist things. And then they have all these funds for these super cybernetic stuff. And where are they getting the money for this stuff? Who is backing these people? How many people are under their ranks? How are they able to get around like this, and how are they able to outclass even the top militaries of the world? How are they able to instill this much fear, yet be so secretive about their causes? How do they afford super secret labs that are the size of a fucking Empire State Building under the ground? How are they able to fund this project in any real way, and how much do they pay their staff? And again, where are they getting the money for this? I can't stress that enough. And then I have to raise the question, how do they get so many people that are loyal to them? Why are they loyal to them? Because if they cause the apocalypse, then they'll probably die too. And by probably, I mean they will die too. What is the final goal here? Why would you want to do that? You can say they're crazy, but they can't all be crazy. Some of them beg for their lives. Some of them are just regular scientists with families. Some of them are even just mercenaries. I have no understanding of how this works. The Black Spider Clan is even in Ninja Gaiden 3 again. And that made no sense either, because then I was like, how many fucking ninjas do you guys have that you're able to pull this off? You know, I really have to question that, because there's a lot of you, and I have no idea how you guys are even still around at this point, because I fucking stabbed like a gajillion of you guys in Ninja Gaiden 2, and now there's still more. How big is your clan? I mean, you guys must number in the tens of thousands. I mean, Ryu himself alone has killed multitudes of your people. That's not counting the guys that have died to the rest of the Dragon Clan. I have no understanding of this at all. The only part of this game that I had any real enjoyment out of was when Momiji showed up, because I freaking love Momiji. She's awesome, and that's about it.
You know, I started this part out, raising the question as to whether or not they even put a game on the disc, because that was the only conceivable way I could think of for them to make a game worse than Ninja Gaiden 2, but, you know, I thought about it, and they really didn't put a game on the disc. This isn't a game. This is not a game. See, a game implies that you're playing it, and there's some level of a goal involved, and it's true. That the goal is here, but it's all scripted in order, and there's just no challenge to it. It's just run forward and hit stuff without any form of resistance given. It barely exists as a game, to the point where they basically didn't put a game on the disc. So yeah, they definitely did make a game worse than Ninja Gaiden 2, didn't they? This is amazing. This is amazing. I'm just floored by this whole thing. The first game was so good, and I have no idea what's going through their heads anymore. I don't know. Now, I started this out by saying I don't play fix-it games. However, I will admit that I have at least tried Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma on the PS3. And I will say that there are a lot of things about that version of Ninja Gaiden 2 that do make it better. For instance, there's really no bugs that I found. The weapons are still fucking broken as shit, but it's more playable than the Xbox version. And I've also been told that the re-released version of Ninja Gaiden 3 is way better than the first one, of course. I, again, can't see how you would go down at this point, but the question is, would you want to buy them? I don't know. On the basis that you're talking about giving money to a company for messing up. And I guess if you really have to play them, I would suggest avoiding the original releases at all costs. Especially with Ninja Gaiden 3. But if you want to play the newer ones, then I guess you could. I don't care to, but that's just me. Personally, I would literally recommend any other game in this genre over these two. Play Bayonetta, play Metal Gear Rising, play God of War, play Devil May Cry. I don't even like Devil May Cry. That is better than this. Really, anything is better than this. Just don't play this. This is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.